like. So that started now as well. And I need to read through our hearing script, which I'll do now. This basically just covers the procedure of the hearing. And then we'll jump into the presentation of the applicant's case. So this is the March 9th, 2022 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati, and I'll preside over this hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20220013. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted evidence in writing or digitally prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. Anyone from the public would then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. I'll give the zoning plans examiner, Trey Sheldon, an opportunity to provide any testimony after the public has had an opportunity to speak. And then in the event anyone offers any testimony or argument in opposition to this application, I'll give the applicants an opportunity to respond to that testimony that's been offered in opposition. And then finally give the applicants an opportunity to make any closing statements. So
David, do you mind if I just came to an observation that I believe Ms. Rusnak stated they live on William Howard Taft, and so I didn't, out of politeness to them, I think that was from the previous hearing, from Doug's hearing, if I'm not mistaken. So they may be in the wrong hearing, and I just, before they sit in for a half hour of this or something, I caught that and I looked it up on Cages, and I think that may be from the previous hearing. So I don't know how you want to handle that, but I just made note of that.
Sure, that's a good catch. I sounded odd to me too, but William Howard Taft is one of those streets that like is sneaky and just in places you don't expect sometimes. Ms. Rusnak and Mr. Sanders, what address are you here for the hearing? Not your address, but
1 Taft Road Lane.
Yeah, so that hearing did already occur. It was at 9 a.m. this morning.
I thought that they changed it to 11 o'clock.
No, they did not. So good news, bad news situation here. Good. So the bad news, of course, is that you did miss the initial hearing this morning.
Okay.
And it's already concluded. Well, it hasn't concluded. That's the good news. That it was actually continued in progress. The applicant and the owner of the property is going to take some more time to engage with some neighboring property owners that that objected to the project. And so those conversations are going to be happening over the course of the next couple of weeks. And then the hearing will be back on for March 23rd. And a time for that hearing has not been set yet. But again, the same notices will go out for that hearing this week. So you'll get a postcard and then you'll be able to register and participate in that hearing in the future.
Okay.
Perfect.
For some reason, I thought
I had gotten an update saying at 11 o'clock, but
obviously
we're good.
Thank you.
I don't know why that happened. I'll look into it to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, but apologize for any miscommunications there. And we'll let you know about the 23rd.
with your own meeting now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Sure, they've probably been to the zoo. They might have wanted to, add a few things there. All right.
Well, when they said they lived right across the street, there's nothing there at this point. So I was like,
that's what threw me too. I was like, there's a parking lot across the street from this, or a future parking lot.
yeah.
And, I'm glad we caught that, so they didn't just sit in there cross-eyed going, what's going on here?
Right. Well,
Okay. All right. So I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony that's generally evidence you want to introduce the consistent statements made by someone who's not present at this hearing. In the event of any technical difficulties, I will do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, let's get everyone sworn in. So everyone who's going to testify, if you could, looks like everyone's off mute except for Trey. If you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, great. All right, who's going to be taking the lead here for us?
I will. So David, educate me real quick, because again, we haven't done one of these with you. We submitted our application. We're very familiar with doing this. We work closely with Trey. We agree with the entirety of his report. If you've read his report, I don't have a whole lot more to add. If you want me to, I can distill this into two things, basically. One, we have a requirement with the USDA to have an 8-foot animal containment barrier. And we've tried to, nudge, wink, wink with Trey and staff and label these things as animal barriers, but they always get caught as fences. So whatever. So we're here for a dimensional variance to go from a 6-foot maximum fence to an 8-foot fence. It's consistent with the fencing that's in the area, and so on. The second thing is we're here for a hillside overlay relief. And if you have the report, and if you go to the third page, figure 3 that Trey put together, you can see that despite the fact that the hillside overlay is clearly in this area, it's clearly not a hillside overlay kind of candidate in the traditional sort. We'd love to get the map fixed, but Trey and other staff has pointed out that, getting the map fixed is like a much more monumental task than having these conversations and following this process. So, we don't have geotechnical issues. We don't have view issues. We have geotech reports. We've worked in this area. We built a bridge, right around the corner from here, and probably missed a long time ago, Trey, I think also in the hillside overlay, not certain of that. And, when we did a lot of this years ago, no one caught that this was in the hillside overlay. There's existing walls shown on figure 2 that are all there. We feel that, again, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you've read the report, I don't have a whole lot more to add. We completely agree with Trey's findings, which is, recommending the 3 variances that we request. So, if I can give you back 20 minutes of your day, I'd be happy to.
Okay. So that it's completely up to you how you'd like to orient it. I have read through the application materials and read through Trey's staff report. So I'm happy if, you feel like you can distill this down, or if you already feel like you have distilled this down, to take that. I do have a question about something you just said. Are you saying that the hillside overlay map is wrong for this property? Like there's no topographical relief or anything that would qualify to be
Well, it's just one of these things where, because of how the map was drawn, and Trey, if you want to jump in here, it's just very odd. If you look at that figure 2 shape, it doesn't really match it doesn't match the conditions. Like, when I think of hillside, and I'm big on hillside, it's Ohio River, it's Mount Adams, it's view sheds, it's areas that are geotechnically unsafe. And, this is not an area that's geotechnically unsafe. But even if it was, we did an extensive geotech report. We did borings at this location. We have done all the things that you would do to make certain you're building something properly in the city of Cincinnati. But it's not appropriate to say the map is wrong. We laid out, and nowhere in our written statement do we say that the map is wrong. We address every aspect of what you would do to apply for hillside relief. So it's just that, again, we're not the traditional view shed, Mount Adams landslide area. Trey, I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, I've talked to Jeff and with Mark about this. Now, most of the parts, like when we did the gorilla wall years ago, that really isn't legit. That makes sense because of the topography. Here, basically, when planning did this in the GIS system, they use like an algorithm or whatever with topography, and it may be that for this one, whenever it was updated, that the retaining wall that occurred back, that must have been 15, 20 years ago, when the first bridge was built over Vine Street, it may be that the topography now, like where I have that, David, in figure 2, where I have that existing retaining wall, it may be like a gravity kind of thing on that algorithm. It may be making this jump out into a point. I can't explain it, but it's just kind of an outlier. I think that's what it's doing, is sort of jumping toward that really steep slope there where you see, that's not a depiction of the retaining wall on my photo. Those are the topographic lines of declination that are just that tight because there's an existing 22-foot tall wall there. Yeah. So I think that may be what the deal is, but to undo it with planning and have them redo part of their that ain't happening. So,
No, it's not.
so, at this point, my comments on this, David, would be that, I mean, all of this is for a legitimate public or semi-public purpose. The city council has been very adamant, as are the neighbors. I actually spoke with two neighbors about this that were happy that they're building the parking lots there, because until they had resolved that many years ago, or back when the lots on Vine Street were done, it was problematic. Sorry about that, fellas. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Anyhow, the bottom line is that city council and the neighbors are happy with there being additional parking, because it stops people from parking on streets. It's also something that the zoo had to address anyhow as a practical matter, because I mentioned in my staff report, they've got the Home to Roam Asian elephant project coming up that'll take up the safari lot, which was kind of an overflow lot for big events like Zoofari, and I parked there many times for zoo events, but it's kind of beaten up and potholed at this point, and holding bed for landscaping plants and other things. And, that's all going to be changed over into an exhibit with the huge grant that they received, or the check, I guess, from the, anyhow, but they've received a lot of donations for that. So the bottom line is that city council and the neighbors like it that there's a parking lot, increased parking lot. I think there have been several accidents, including a death of people trying to cross the street. So it's very common sense that they would try to put another pedestrian bridge across here for just public safety. Any big event at the zoo, the Blooms and Tunes, or I was there myself watching people with their kids try to run in little packs across the street during the Festival of Lights. And I just think this makes a lot of common sense. The height of the bridge is dictated in turn by DOTE requirements to allow vehicular passage beneath it. And then the other, there are basically four aspects of governmental regulations in here. The other one is ADA accessibility. So they have to have this bridge be at a specific pitch and a kind of a, David, you're a hiker too. You know how there are switchbacks. They have to do kind of a switchback ramp as you get closer to the existing wall area there, in order to get people onto the plaza, the ticketing plaza. And so, those two aspects are dictated by DOTE and by ADA. And then lastly, you have the USDA, which requires the animal perimeter fence. In fact, they've had a larger fence on a previous project I was on that was 12 feet in height, because it had immediately adjacent parking. And the veterinarian fellow from the USDA made the very, common sense point. If you had a structure such as some sort of rock feature or something, or a car parked anywhere, like say an SUV, hey, a tiger's going to look at that SUV and say, hey, thanks for the ladder. So, or the steps. So that one in the previous hearing, this was back 5 or 6 years ago, but they needed even further relief because they had to be up to 12 feet. Here, there aren't any cars around here or any other features that an animal could use to leap over the wall. And so here they just need the 2 feet of relief to have an 8-foot fence. So I think all of this is, if you really wanted to look at it in a specific legal light, it's some of this is like superseded. I mean, you can't not do this. It's superseded by safety doctrines for USDA and for ADA and ODOT, and so I think they're doing the minimum they can to comply with common sense and with government regulations. But that's all I have to say.
The other thing that I didn't put in my Section 6 written statement that didn't even occur to me as you were talking about that, Trey, is that the city of Cincinnati, passed an ordinance granting us the right to use some of their land to actually build this bridge on the north side of Erkenbrecker. We have a slight encroachment into the right of way. And, we have easements from the city to build our bridge over the highway, over the road. We have an encroachment easement for this very abutment at that location. So, I mean, this has been, thoroughly vetted at the governmental level. I didn't even think to note those city council actions.
Yeah, and I put in my staff report that there was a coordinated review for all of this too, and involving law department. Charles Martinez weighed in on this, and just there's been a lot of heavy lifting, so to speak, has already been done. This is just a formality almost. So.
Good point. This did go through the coordinated report process, David, because of we created right away and we abandoned right away as a function of the overall project, that being a parking lot, roadway improvements to increase traffic function, and then this bridge, which is a combination of traffic and pedestrian safety. So, I mean, we hit a lot on this one. This has been going on for, at this point, active coordination with the city since 2013, but in this current incarnation since December of 2020. And we started the coordinated report process in January of 21. So, yeah, so a lot of coordination, a lot of public involvement, every neighborhood council, it's not going to look a whole lot different than what you see out there now.
Yeah. And to be clear, the existing wall is 26 feet.
Not at that exact location, but as you go towards Vine Street, by the bridge in that area, it's about 26 feet tall.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And on that figure too, is the red sort of spiky overlay there? Is that the hillside?
That's the hillside overlay. Yeah. And that's why I said, I don't really understand why it went out to such a pronounced point. I can only assume that, like I said, it's a mathematical algorithm of some sort that they put in there. And it may have just like drawn it like that steep cut where the existing retaining wall is to the computer. That's a cliff. And so it may have just gone and pulled it that way. I can't speak to it, but it's, they needed relief for the fence anyhow, and so on. And at this point, everything was also teed up, and all the engagement with the neighbors and with community council and with all branches of government had already occurred. So this was just, we're just like dotting the I and crossing the T's on Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, our take on it, David, is that we had to come before this group for the dimensional variance. And so, this hillside process is easier than past hillside processes we've gone through. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else, Mr. Kern or Mr. Fisher, before we adjourn here today? Okay. Yeah. Great. All right. So yeah, I have had a chance to review the application materials and the staff report. Based on that and based on the testimony here today, I'm going to approve the project.
Thank you.
I need to formalize that decision in a written opinion on this. That usually does take about 2 weeks. I'll try and get it to you as quickly as I can. But as soon as I finish that, I put into a PDF. I email it to everybody who's in the hearing today. So you all have a copy of it just moments after it's complete. Trey, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, one thing I'd ask Jeff to do, please, if you would, if you could email me, because I handle most of the permits for the zoo, like, other things that don't relate to this at all kinds of things. You guys have a lot in play right now. And so if I just query this by the address in my, without a revision being done, if I query this by your address, I'm going to end up with like 50 things I have to search through. So if you know which of the 3 or 4 permits or whatever are related to this, you can email me that, then I can flip that switch immediately upon David's issuance of his decision. I'd really appreciate that, because it'll save me, hour of clicking all the different permits.
I will, because there's like 3 or 4 for this.
Yeah.
Because it's on, it's on 2 sides of the road, and then, there's a lot.
Yeah. And probably in the total of last year and this year, I probably have a dozen permits from the zoo or more, probably more than that. So absolutely. I just want to make sure I can separate wheat from chaff quickly, so I can get these, permits approved immediately as soon as David issues his decision.
I'll try to do that yet today or tomorrow.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions about the status of the decision, want an update on that, or have any other questions, in the meantime, feel free to reach out and send me an email. I'll get back to you right away. Otherwise, look out in your email for the formal decision coming through. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.